Well, this season, it's just feeling a lot like last season so far. With our Calgary Roughnecks there, the only thing difference is that it's the calendar and the season here. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that first picture that I showed there, as it's time for another episode of... Hey there, it's Brett Hornby here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel here, and it's time for another episode of my Calgary Roughnecks this month here. Here we are, this is season 2, episode number 3 here, and as they say out in Atlantic Canada there, how's it going, my trout? At least that's my attempt there, and I'm still fairly high off of, the East Coast kitchen party of the last home game there, and, one of the things that they do in Atlantic Canada there is you kiss the trout, or kiss the cod, I should say. Kiss the cod. That was that picture they had in the beginning there. But, I purposely wore my cowboy hat at that occasion. A little bit of east versus west there. So yeah, of course, enjoy everything I do on my YouTube channel here. Follow along with this Calgary sports fans journey here as we're home with the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders there, as I mostly do game recaps and talk about stories here. So make sure you subscribe and follow along there and hit that bell icon. I also do personal vlogs, attempt to comedy, and anything else I do, like at a sporting event, capturing my smartphone, like for example, at the time when we raised our championship banner for celebrating the championship last season, or anything time so I'm on holidays where, capture some scenery here. However, last season, so far this season is feeling a lot like last season in terms of all the adversity and the tough losses here and injuries, because there's definitely some injuries that happened, and we also have made some trades and transactions here in this month before we get to the games here, because there was actually only a couple games this month here, but a lot seemed to happen in those couple games there. So let's get going here. So before I get to the games here, let's talk about the transactions here, as if you go back to last episode here, and it was the last game when we played the Philadelphia Wings here, I felt like we lost Jesse King. It definitely did not look pretty there how he was dumped in the boards there, so Calgary definitely was getting short-handed on forwards here. So and coincidentally, I cover all those Calgary sports teams here, and actually the first couple days of 2020 there, each team made a trade. As the Flames traded away Michael Frolik, the Stampeders traded his rights, Nick Arbuckle's rights to Ottawa there. The Hitmen made a trade where they traded away James Malm first, and they also made several trades on the WHL trade deadline there, so you can look at those videos for game recaps. And the Roughnecks said, hey, let's make a trade too, as, this was like around January 4th here. The Calgary Roughnecks acquired Dereck Downs from the New England Black Wolves, and we give New England a 2020 and a 2022 third-round NLL draft pick there. So we acquired Dereck Downs here, and also another player that we acquired here, actually was available and was on the practice roster, but both these players jumped in right away, was Zach Herreweyers. So we acquired Dereck Downs from New England, and we just picked up Zach Herreweyers, who initially he was signed to the practice roster here, but both Dereck and Zach, so we have another Zach, have made their Roughneck debuts in the next game here. So Dereck Downs is number 24 in your program, and Zach Herreweyers, to make things even more confusing, so we already have Zach Courier, who wears 77. Well, Zach Herreweyers wears number 71 here. So, and it's interesting, Dereck spells his name Dereck. So, and then Zach, well, this one spells it with the H at the end there. So, it's pronounced the same as K or H. So yeah, that's the two transactions that the Calgary Roughnecks made in the first part of January here. But it wasn't until the second half of the month here that the Roughnecks actually played some games here, as this has definitely been a strange NLL schedule here, because It's like they play a bunch of games in a short time, and then they have like 3 weeks off, and then they play a bunch of games here. So that's the transactions and the opening there. I mean, that was a little longer than usual, but a lot have happened off the turf before we actually talk about stuff that happened on the turf here. So yeah, there was only 2 games to recap January 2020 here. So Game 5 of the NL regular season. I'm just going to call them games this year because of the strange schedule and some weeks that they play a couple games in the same week here. Because last season, like the football games, I referred to the weeks for each game here. But I'm going to say games this year, as I've done so far. So Game 5, this happened on Saturday, January the 18th here. The Calgary Roughnecks were taking on the Rochester Nighthawks, and this, they're technically the expansion team, even though there's been a Rochester Nighthawks here for a while here. This is the expansion team where they actually got a new team here. This was at the Blue Cross Arena here, and as I said, this was the first ever visit for this reincarnation of the Rochester Nighthawks here. I mentioned some of these transactions happen because we have no Jesse King for an indefinite amount of period here. However, overtime hero Reese Dutch, the guy who scored the big overtime winner that got the Rough House in a frenzy when we won the championship, he returned to the lineup here. So maybe some good news. That's so you gain some players back. So how did this game go? Well, Calgary actually did start off quickly with the first 2 goals, both by Eli Salema here in the first 2 minutes here. So Calgary had an early 2-0 lead in this game here. Rochester then did score the next 3 goals in a 7-minute stretch to now have a 3-2 lead. Led by former Roughneck Holden Cantoni, started off the scoring with Curtis Knight and Rylan Reese here. And then Calgary was able to get 2 more goals in the first quarter here, both by Superman, Curtis Superman Dixon here, including a penalty shot goal and a goal with 12 seconds to go in the first quarter there. So after the first quarter, the Calgary Roughnecks had a 4-3 lead. Second quarter, each team actually scored 3 goals here, so there were 6 goals in this quarter here. It was actually Dereck Downs, the new Roughneck, making his debut in here. Opens up the scoring for Calgary in the second quarter, as I said, for his first goal with us at the 2-minute mark. And then Dan Linter for Rochester gets him back within run at the 4.5-minute mark before Mitch Wild and Dereck Downs again scores. So it was 7-4 Calgary just past the 9.5-minute mark of the second quarter. Rochester did get 2 more goals just before halftime as Paul Dawson and Dan Michael scored with literally 4 seconds left in the second quarter just before halftime here. So Calgary still led by 1 with a 7-6 lead at halftime here. Third quarter was definitely a busy one for the game here as it featured the most goals here. First, it was Rochester who tied it up from Tom Miswitty, a goal just before the 2.5-minute mark, so it was 7-7 there. And then Dan Taylor for the Calgary Roughnecks. He scored 2 goals 24 seconds apart here, just past the 3-minute mark, so it was 9-7 Calgary at this point in this game here. Rochester scored the next 3 goals in a 3.5-minute stretch here. So Rochester led 10-9 at the 8.5-minute mark of the third quarter. So we're definitely getting an entertaining close game here. Goal scorers for the Nighthawks is Corey Highfield, Phil Caputo, and Turner Evans are the goal scorers here. Then Calgary fought back again with the next 2 goals. Dan Taylor and Reese Callies to take a 11-10 lead. This is past the 10.5-minute mark of the third quarter here. Rochester got the final goal of the third quarter here to close up this busy third quarter of goals here in the final 2 minutes by Curtis Knight. So we had an 11-11 lead going into the fourth quarter here. As so far this season, Calgary's definitely been playing in a lot of close games here, but if you go back to the last episode here, you're going to say we've been on the wrong end of those close games here. So how did the fourth quarter go here? Well, Calgary did regain the lead by the other hit Roughneck that was making his debut with us. Is Zach Herreweyers got his first as a Roughneck 3.5 minutes into the fourth quarter here, so Calgary took a 12-11 lead at that point there. Excuse me, and then Rochester tied it up at 12 apiece here. past the 7-minute mark by Ryland Reese here. And then Curtis Knight for the Rochester Nighthawks scored a minute later to put them up 13-12 here. So we're still halfway through the fourth quarter here, and Rochester Nighthawks now find themselves up by 13-12 here. Calgary was seeking a tying goal here, but ultimately, once again, we were on the wrong end of another close one here, as the Rochester Nighthawks won this game 13-12 here for their first win in franchise history in this incarnation of the Rochester Nighthawks here. So at this point, the Calgary Roughnecks dropped to 2-3 in the season here, where 3 of those losses were all one-goal games. This one, I'm going to say, not as heartbreaking, because the first game at home, we lost in overtime there. And then the last game before this one, we lost in like the last seconds of the game. So essentially it was almost overtime here. But so yeah, Rochester won this game 13-12. And actually this was the first defeat for Calgary away from the Rough House here. Calgary had the slight edge in shots. It was 54-53 here, so it was a closely played game here. So who led the way for the Calgary Roughnecks here? Well, Curtis Superman Dixon. He had 2 goals and 3 assists here. Dan Taylor had 3 goals for the hat-trick here. And then Zach Herreweyers had a nice debut for the Calgary Roughnecks, as he had a goal and 3 assists here, as well as Dereck Downs. He also, well, these guys are going to look pretty good in a Roughnecks gear, given how they've played so far, with 2 goals here. Rochester, on the other side of the ball here, was led away by Curtis Knight. He had a big game with 3 goals and 3 assists here. Former Roughneck, Holden Cantoni, he had a goal and 5 assists here. So when it comes to the goaltending side of the thing, Christian Del Bianco for Calgary made 40 saves, while Greg Wendy made 42 saves for Rochester there. So so far January is not looking good here. But here's one more game to go in January here, and it was on Saturday, January the 25th here, for the East Coast Kitchen Party here. We were taking on the Halifax Thunderbirds here. That was the Rochester Nighthawks franchise from last season. That franchise relocated to Rochester there. They also took along with the franchise history there. So the Rochester Nighthawks that we just played in the last game here is a brand new clean slate franchise there, if you follow along here. But so yeah, this was the game against the Halifax Thunderbirds here, back at the Rough House at the Scotiabank Saddledome. That was a 7:30 ball drop here. And I said this was definitely the first ever matchup that Calgary was playing Halifax here. And this also, one thing that the NLL started this season here, and this was the second game for the Alternate Bank Cup here, as they're going to have a Canadian Champion Cup here, so every time a Canadian team plays another Canadian team here, actually the first game was the Calgary Roughnecks playing the Vancouver Warriors there. If you go back to episode 1 there, where that was the first game of the Alternate Bank Cup here, so this was the second all-Canadian matchup in the league here, so and the team with the best winning percentage at the end of the season here gets crowned the Alternate Bank Cup here. So, but the Halifax Thunderbirds here was definitely going to provide a challenge for Calgary here, as coming into this game here, they were a perfect 5-0 coming in here. So definitely was interesting here, and you know, it's also a game for the get in the spirit of the Atlantic thing, kissing cods, you know, hearing some you know, Celtic music and all that stuff. So it was East Coast Kitchen Party there, and you know, East versus West here. So I've never been to Atlantic Canada here, but you know, one of these times I'll do that. But I'm always probably Western Canadian. Let's get on to the game here. As actually Calgary started off well again here with another quick 2 goals here, just like the last game here. It was actually Tyler Pace that opened up the scoring. So Calgary had a 2-0 lead here 2 minutes into this game here. Calgary definitely looked great at the beginning here. And then after that, it was Curtis Superman Dixon who scores to make it 3-0 for Calgary just past the 7.5 minute mark here. So Calgary was up 3-0 here. Things were looking good in the Rough House here. However, Halifax did get a good first goal of the game at the 8.5 minute mark by Stephen Kuno. So it was 3-1 Calgary at that point here. Calgary got one more goal in the fourth quarter, and it was Zach Herreweyers making his debut in the Rough House as a Roughneck here in the final minute. So Calgary had a 4-1 lead after the first quarter here. So I was thinking, hey, things are looking good here against, you know, the top team in the league at this point here. Second quarter, Halifax did score to make it 4-2 here, just before the 5.5-minute mark by James Barclay there. However, Curtis Superman Dixon once again scored the next 2 goals for the Calgary Hitmen in a 3.5-minute stretch here, so now it made it 6-2 for the Calgary Roughnecks at that point of the second quarter here, at the 13.5-minute mark. And then Halifax got one more goal in the final minute by Cody Jamieson here. So Calgary had a good lead at 6-3 at halftime here, so things were looking good here. If we had that same effort in the second half here, Calgary would get their first win at home in the Rough House here, as Calgary has not won in the Rough House, even if you include the preseason game, since winning it all last season here. However, the third quarter came, and this is where things turned for one team and not so for the other here. And unfortunately, things weren't going good for the Calgary Roughnecks here, as Cody Jameson, who scored the goal late in the first half here, he scored again early in the third quarter here to start off the second half, 45 seconds in. So that cut the lead down to 6-4 for Calgary here. Halifax did get 2 more goals in a 36-second stretch here by Stephen Keno and Cody Jameson. So we had a 6-6 game here past the 6-minute mark of the third quarter here. Tyler Pace just before the 7-minute mark, and Zach Herreweyers just before the 8.5-minute mark. Calgary got back in the lead, so it was 8-6 for Calgary at that point in the third quarter. Then Halifax scored the next 6 goals in the third quarter. Yes, you heard that right. They scored the next 6 goals here by and there were 3 players that got 2-goal performances here in the second half of the third quarter alone here, as it was Stephen Keno, Clark Peterson, and Ryan Bench, who each got 2 goals in the second half of the third quarter here. So now Halifax led 12-8 going in the fourth quarter here. And if you're keeping track here, the Halifax Thunderbirds outscored the Calgary Roughnecks 9-2 alone in the third quarter here. So definitely, it's where it meant that things definitely turned for one team. Not so for the others here, as Halifax was showing their muscle here going into the second half here. Fourth quarter, Halifax continued their goal scoring run, so they went on a 6 straight goals here. So they went on a 7-goal straight run here, as in the fourth quarter, 41 seconds in, it was James Barclay who scored to make it 13-8 here. However, Calgary finally got a goal just past the opening minute of the fourth quarter here by Shane Simpson here. So it was 13-9 for Halifax just past the first minute in the fourth quarter. So Calgary was still down by 4 goals here, and definitely had some work to do here if they were planning on winning this game here. Halifax got another goal just a minute later though, so this definitely did not help, by Stephen Keno to make it 14-9 for Halifax just past the 2-minute mark of the fourth quarter. I mean, it's not impossible here, but Halifax definitely had the momentum here, and still had some work to do. But was there any hope here? Calgary get the next 2 goals, but it took an 8-minute stretch here, as both Dan Taylor and Shane Simpson scored. So going into just past the 10-minute mark at the fourth quarter here, Calgary was able to cut their deficit down to 14-11 there. So Halifax still led by 3 at this time. However, then in the final 5 minutes, there was only a goal for each side here. So as you'll figure out here, the Calgary Roughnecks did not win this game. It was Clark Peterson for Halifax who scored an entire pace goal with just a minute and a half left here. So it was 15-12 here, but ultimately the Halifax Thunderbirds maintained their perfect record here by beating the Calgary Roughnecks 15-12 here on the strength of that 9-2 third quarter here. So I'm going to say that's where some of these elements still felt similar to last season here, is that Calgary's looked great at times, inconsistent at times, and it showed that we could play with the big boys as one of the top teams in the league as defending champions here, but fortunately we were definitely terribly outplayed in here. Halifax also outshot the Calgary Roughnecks 64-45 here to show their dominance here. However, who led the way for the Calgary Roughnecks here? Well, Tyler Pace had a pretty good game. He had 4 goals and an assist here. Curtis Superman Dixon, he had 3 goals and an assist there. Shane Simpson and Zach Herreweyers each had 2 goals and an assist in this game. Halifax, well, there was definitely plenty of around to go around on who led the way. Well, Stephen Keno had 5 goals, and then Clark Peterson had 2 goals and three goals, 2 assists there. Cody Jameson had 3 goals and assists there. Ryan Bentz had 2 goals and assists there, and Mike Burke, he chipped in with 6 assists in this game here, so it was definitely a great overall performance for the Halifax Thunderbirds there for their first season in the NLL representing Halifax here, and definitely giving some folks out in the line of Canada something to cheer for, as it's their first professional team there. Hopefully that CFL team is also going to come too, and we can always dream that maybe the NHL will be in Halifax as well. I could dream. So for the goaltending situation here, well, it's Christian Del Bianco. He was definitely busier of the 2 goalies. He made 49 saves for Calgary. Well, Warren Hill for Halifax only needed to make 33 saves for Halifax there. So after this is actually the first third of the regular season here, the Calgary Roughnecks have now dropped to 2-4 here and are tied for 3rd in the West Division here. I'm going to wait for another month here, more games to be played, before we start looking at how we shape up going into the playoffs here. And the other thing we should note here is that we still don't know what was the prompted the 6-game suspension for Dane Dobbie here, but we just have a couple more games to go, or one more game that we're still without our captain here, and then Dane Dobbie will come back. So hopefully we'll get some reinforcements in February here. And speaking of February here, let's take a look ahead to what's on the schedule for February here, as Calgary will have a few more games coming up here in February here. So Game 7, this will happen on Saturday, February 8th here, as the Calgary Roughnecks will take on the other expansion team. This will be at home against the New York Riptide here at the Scotiabank Saddle, and that'll be a 7:30 ball drop there. And then game number 8, this will be on Saturday, February the 22nd here. This will be the game when Dane Dobbie will finally come back. Yes! Or eligible to come back at least. On Saturday, February 22nd here, the Calgary Roughnecks will be going on the road to Duluth, Georgia, to take on the Georgia Swarm at the Infinite Energy Center. That'll be a 5 p.m. ball drop here. And then Game 9, this will happen on Leap Year Day. Keep in mind that 2020 is a leap year. It will be on Saturday, February the 29th here. The Calgary Roughnecks come back home to take on divisional rival, the San Diego Seals here. That'll be a 7:30 p.m. ball drop here. So that will be there'll be 3 games to talk about in February here. But it won't be till March that I'll make the episode, but it'll represent February. So hopefully things will start looking a little better here for the Calgary Roughnecks here. But a lot of elements right now feel similar to last season there. However, I did recall things ended beautifully for the Calgary Roughnecks last season there. It was definitely a little hair-raising, but it was a classic finish there when we won the championship there. But we definitely have had some adversity here, as we had 3 tough losses here, and then the last game there, even though we lost by 3 goals there, it was that one quarter that really sunk us there. And right now with injuries, well, we know how long Jesse King is out for, but it's not looking good for him. And Ryan Martell also got hurt in the game against Rochester there. But one more game and we'll get Dane Dobbie back, and Zach Herreweyers and Dereck Downs. They've looked good in Roughnecks gear with their performances there. So this is talking a little rigors and costs with the Calgary Roughnecks there, and that's what makes me an overall Calgary sports fan here. So speaking of being a Calgary sports fan here, follow along with this Calgary sports fan's journey here, as I definitely talk about the 4 teams, the Flames, Hitmen, Roughnecks, and Stampeders here. So follow along by hitting subscribe and hit that bell icon to follow along here. I also do personal vlogs, attempt to comedy here, and share my experiences at said sport events or when I'm holidays here. My smartphone here, so that's what my channel is all about here. So I'm definitely a big Calgary sports fan here, but I also spring in some other stuff here in the process here. And I'll say, go Next go. And if you're from Atlantic Canada, how's it going, my trout? I actually heard that, because I first also heard that saying when I used to watch the when the Royal Canadian Air Force was on CBC there, they had a thing called News from Away there. It was Jimmy and Seamus O'Toole, definitely a line of Canada name here. They always open up with, "How's she going, my trout?" And then they actually had Peter Mansbridge on one show, the newscaster, and he'd say, "How's it going, my trout?" So, how's it going, my trout? But we say out here in Western Canada here, Yahoo for the Stampede, so East versus West there. But as I say, I'll see you in the next video here.